So is it you tonight?
It's me tonight.
I hope there was lots of furniture to make.
Works out wonderfully.
Say that again.
I hope there was a lot of the synagogue furniture to make.
Directed, you have to go and see the picture, the brewers, when you say that.
I wanted to see it, but
You have to have 4 hours. It's 3.5, but by the time you get home,
There's
it's 4.
Invented a t-shirt.
I'm not exactly real, but it was nice going to Kansas.
see it.
Great seeing you again. We'll talk after.
You just pay $6.
To some of them, they go up to 20 bucks. Yeah, I was paying it on some of them at 20 bucks. Yeah,
You say so?
I do. I know this.
I think one's probably, I think one's probably.
Did you get a book?
Yeah, I took it.
I made my life by this. And let me tell you, the left-hand page, and then what you do.
So you're okay. Pretty sweater.
That's more
as close to the country as I've ever lived in New Jersey, and it's kind of beautiful. It still is something.
I'm there.
There's, it's more of our,
Vic
go
was there.
around as well. I think,
Counted. There's no one else. So I said,
maybe about 2 months ago.
there's no one else.
It was a solid
Adultery is
mess.
here.
In Bedford,
He gave me a dirty look.
Okay, we actually have a minute now.
Of course.
So we got a minute? Shoshanim Dorili Dorili Vani Lo Haroe Bashoshanim Dorili Mizotola Min Hamidbar Mizotola Min Hamidbar Dorili Vani Lo Haroe Bashoshanim Dorili.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
It is so wonderful to be here in this nice warm room with all of you in this intimate setting. Happy Valentine's Day. We should lower the lights for some mood lighting. We are here on the Bima, joined tonight by Phil Fisherman and by Madeline here, providing us with incredible uplifting music and cantorial cloud pretty soon. 2 more years. I would like to invite up Yoel and Karen to light our candles tonight and bring in not just the mood lighting and the candlelit Shabbat experience that we'll have, but also bring in the light so needed in our world. Yes, you can come up now.
Oh, hear my prayer, I sing to you. Be gracious to the one I love, and bless them with goodness and mercy and peace. Oh, hear my prayer to you. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen.
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kashanu b'mitzvotav v'tziv l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen, amen. We'll continue now with a new tune. We're on page 131. And you'll find the words Ya'aloz Sadai, four lines up from the bottom. This psalm is one that encourages the moving of every single piece of our world, including the trees. We have a convergence of holidays this weekend. We have Valentine's Day, we have President's Day, we have Shabbat, of course, and just yesterday we celebrated Tu B'Shvat, the birthday of the trees. So I hope that you will move your trunks just like the trees to Ya'aloz Sadai, page 131.
אז ירננו כל עצי יער ירננו כל עצי יער, אז ירננו כל עצי יער, יעלו שדי, וכל אשר בו יעלו שדי. איי 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 יעלו שדי, וכל אשר בו יעלו שדי. איי 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 איי, אז ירננו כל עצי יער, 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 יעלו שדי, וכל אשר בו יעלו שדי. איי 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 יעלו שדי, וכל אשר בו יעלו שדי. איי 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 איי.
We'll continue on page 138, Lechadodi.
Lechadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lechadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela.
Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, hishmi'anu el hamiuchad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shemo tiferet v'litila.
Lechadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lechadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki hi mekor hameracha. Merosh mikerem nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila. Lechadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lechadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela.
Verse 5. Hitoreri, hitoreri, ki va'orech umiori. Uri, uri, shir daberi, kivod Adonai, alayich nigla.
Lechadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. Lechadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela.
Please rise.
Boi v'shalom atzeret bala, gam besimcha uv'tzola. Toch emunei am segula, boi chala, boi chala. Lechadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela.
our Sabbath bride has joined us, we stay standing, not just in reference to her, to perhaps our Valentine this evening, but in reverence to God as we say the official call to prayer. The Baruch Hu is found on page 146.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed.
So, you may be seated. So in honor of Valentine's Day, I have a loved base, little iyun tefillah tonight. If you look ahead in your siddur, you'll find that we're about to say ahavat olam, everlasting love, unabounding love. And if you look a little bit further, right, ahavat olam talks about the love that God has for us. But then if you look into the ve'ahavta, that's the love that we have for God. And if you look on page 154, you can take a look if you'd like to. In the second line, you'll see bechol levavcha, right? Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha. You shall love the Lord your God. Bechol levavcha, do we know what that means? Oh, beautiful. With all your heart, with all your heart. So we know that lavav isn't the word for heart, though. In fact, the word for heart is lave. Just lamed bet, or lamed vet in this case, not lamed vet vet. So our commentators, Rashi specifically, we're going to hear a lot from him a little bit later, one of our medieval French commentators toward the earlier time of the medieval period. He comments that there are two vets in that word here because we are supposed to love God with our Yetzer Hatov, our good inclinations, and our Yetzer Hara, our bad inclinations. Only with both of those pieces of our heart are we able to love God. I want to take it a step further. Perhaps these two vets don't only signify the two pieces of our hearts, but they also signify that we have to be in partnership of some kind. Doesn't have to be romantic partnership, but we have to have someone else in our lives, someone who we can be close to in order to truly love God. In our Torah portion today, Yitro, we have Yitro, Moses' father-in-law, come to him and say, this thing that you're doing, governing all by yourself, being alone, is not good, lo tov. There's only one other time in which those words lo tov are used in our entire Tanakh. And it's during creation, when God sees Adam by himself and says, it is not good, it is lo tov for a person to be alone. As we move into Ahavat Olam and we experience, hopefully, at least a taste of this everlasting love, this love that's completely beyond, hopefully we will be able to think about a person in our lives who helps us love back, who inspires us to create more love in the world. We'll turn now to page 148. I'll invite you to rise.
Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim,
אותנו לימדת. אהבת עולם, בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ואהבת עולם. בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
You may be seated, page 154.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Adonai Elohechem Emet. At this time, as we celebrate the freedom of Yair, Sasha, and Sagi, hopefully who will be freed tomorrow morning, hopefully while we're all sleeping. We know that we do rejoice in this moment of freedom, and we should be elated that they will come home. And at the same time, we fight evermore, and we trudge through the bank of the Red Sea in order that all of our people may be free. Mi Chamocha is on page 158.
Ose
ומרים זה אלי אנו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד
We rise in body or in spirit for Vishamru, page 160.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם לעולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש. Adonai, Sefatai Tivtah, Ufi Agil, Tehilatecha, Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise.
Page 166.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor ve'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasarim Tovim Vekonei Hakol Vezocher Chasdei Avot Ve'imahot Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem Leman Shemo Be'ahava Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagein Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah Ata Gibor le'olam Adonai Mechaye hakol ata Rav lehoshia Mashiv haruach umorid hagashem Mechalkel chayim bechesed Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim Somech noflim verofei cholim Umatir asurim Umekayem emunato Lishenei afar
מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
We continue now in silent prayer, remaining standing or seated, depending on our custom. We have the liturgy in our Sidurim in Hebrew, in English, and of course we have the liturgy, the prayer of our hearts. We continue silently.
עושה שלום במרומיו, ויעשה שלום עלינו. ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל. ואמרו אמן. ואמרו אמן.
We truly do need that peace, that Oseh Shalom. May it come speedily in our day. There we go. We'll see if we can get it right. I think we got it. Okay. Shabbat Shalom. So I want to try something for us to say two words that the Israelites as a community said. Let's try it. We'll do a repeat after me. Na'aseh v'nishma. Okay, beautiful. Let's do it all together. Na'aseh v'nishma. Okay. So think about how that sounded to you, and we'll come back to it. Over and over again, I have heard this trope that October 7th was one of the worst events in Jewish history, and this unspeakable tragedy also unified the Jewish people. And to some extent, I think that's true. Days after October 7th, 2023, many of us found ourselves over there in the sanctuary, our hearts aching in pain, consumed by confusion, or scrolling through the news, tears rolling down our cheeks at the unfathomable loss that our people, our community, had experienced. This was before we even knew about the 251 hostages that had been stolen from us. When we gathered here together, or when we gathered in the sanctuary together, the room was packed. On the following Shabbat, it remained full. We felt the fullness of community. Then this past year, when Cantor Sonnet Asor and I led a short memorial service just a year after that horrific and traumatic day, we were joined by far more people in the congregation and online than we had expected. Across the world, Jews and non-Jews came together to raise funds, continue to support the hostages and their family, to bear witness to their pain, and to express their own, to stand in solidarity, to mourn, to weep, and to hope that, God willing, there would be a different future, a better vision. In many ways, the Jewish community has certainly rallied together and unified under this moment of trauma. But we are not entirely unified. Soon after October 7th, we saw many of our Jewish siblings protesting on college campuses or taking to the streets, shouting words that perhaps crossed our red lines, and that led some to post on social media that maybe they weren't even Jews at all. Last Pesach, many rabbis around the world preached about polarization and division, not only in our country or our community, but around our Seder tables. We experienced moments in which children were unable to speak to their parents, unable to understand their parents, and parents in turn could not listen to their children. We were not quite as unified as some of us remember, as perhaps we thought we were. Today, that splintering of the Jewish people continues as a mixture of joy for the return of the hostages and fear for the road that lies ahead sweeps over our beloved Israel, still governed by the most right-wing nationalist coalition in the country's history. The splintering continues as we endure polarization and an onslaught of divisive policy and fear-mongering in our own country. This peoplehood amongst the Jewish people is not yet ripping at the seams, but it is being tested. And it's very different from the picture that our Torah portion, Yitro, paints for us today. The Israelites are about to experience God in all of God's glory, not in the form of the plagues, not in the parting of the Red Sea, but instead in every single natural element coalescing in one space around Mount Sinai, with thunder, fire, lightning, strong winds, and a booming blast of a shofar so loud that they could see the sound in front of them, not to mention God's own voice. As they gather around Mount Sinai for the moment that our commentators call the most foundational and dramatic moment in our entire Torah, one that forms an eternal bond among all of the people of Israel, past, present, and future, God calls upon Moses to tell the Israelites that if they obey God faithfully, then they will receive the precious covenant. Moses goes to the mass of people, so many different people, that left Egypt. And before he can even finish his sentence, our text reads, Vaya'anu chol ha'am yachdav. And they answered him as one people, all together. Vaya'anu, they answered him, kol, all of them, ha'am, the people, Yachdav, together, saying, all that God has said, we will do. There are plenty of instances in our Torah in which people respond with the same words at the same time, but this is the only time in the entire Tanakh that this phrase, Kol Ha'am Yachdav, the whole people together, all the people together, is used. Netivot Shalom, an early 20th century Hasidic master, writes that it was as if Am Yisrael, the people of Israel, spoke in one voice, so much so that each of the voices of the people were indistinguishable from one another. They were no longer individuals. It was as if a miracle had occurred. A friend and colleague of mine, Rabbi Sammy Cantor, reminded me of a comment that Rashi made, you'll remember, a French medieval commentator, on a line in this parsha that takes place just a few verses before. The line reads, having journeyed from Rephidim, they entered the wilderness of Sinai, and encamped in the wilderness. Israel encamped there in front of the mountain. It's kind of a strange couple of sentences. Why does it repeat that the people encamped there? Why does it say the word encamped twice? Rashi picks up on this immediately, obviously. He says the first time we see the verb, it's in the plural. This huge mass of people, families, children, grandparents, each of them encamped in the wilderness of Sinai. But the second time, the word encamped is in the singular. They were one Am Yisrael, unified, and they encamped as one people. Rashi notes that this change in grammar is actually a comment on how they treated each other while they were journeying. As they left Rephidim, he writes that they quarreled, they gossiped, and they engaged in machlokot, the plural of machloket, arguments, not just any kind of argument, but existential arguments in which one is not able to see the human being before them. Rather, they're only able to hear the opinion abhorrent to them. By the time that they arrived at Mount Sinai, they had undergone some kind of shift. They stopped quarreling and gossiping and engaging in machlokot, and they began to see each other for what they truly were, different people in the same nation. Rashi writes that at this time, they were ke'ish echad belev echad, right? Remember that word, lev, heart? They were like one person with one heart. Though they held different opinions, they came together in community unified as one person and one heart. We see this amazing example for how we ought to behave in this single comment. We would have expected that, given the grandeur, the incredible awe and trembling of being at Mount Sinai, fire, wind, thunder, lightning, God's self speaking from a thick cloud above the mountain, we would think that that would be the moment in which something changed in the Israelites. That would be the moment of unification. But instead, it's not the traumatic or dramatic that bring the Israelites to view themselves as one community and one nation. They become one in the thickness of the wilderness, trudging through the desert from one place to another, just trying to stay alive. Perhaps that's where we are now. They were able to see themselves not as separate tents, but as one encampment in the wilderness. It was only after that this miracle of Kol Ha'am Yachdav, all the people said together, that we could actually have that miracle. However, this Kol Ha'am Yachdav is actually only the first of 3 times that the Israelites expressed their readiness to enter the covenant with God. I'd like to compare it to the 3rd time they acquiesce, which actually occurs in next week's Parsha. I hope you'll allow. This 3rd instance yields some of the most famous words in our entire Torah, and perhaps some of the best rabbinic thought from our classical commentators. The words you all said in the beginning of this Devar Torah, Na'aseh v'nishma, which means we will do and we will hear, right? The word nishma comes from the word shema. So perhaps it's not just hear, but it's understand or listen or obey, depending on your translation. There is so much commentary on these 2 simple words. But my favorite comes from Rabbi Moshe David Umberto Cazuto. He's got a lot of names, lots of honor there. He writes that this phrase really means we will do, we will act as one, but we will come with our own unique understanding, reasons for being here and acting this way, our own unique background, each with our singular voice. Just like when you said these 2 words, Na'aseh v'nishma, at the beginning of the Devar Torah, you could recognize different voices. You might have heard Alan's voice from the back over here. You might have heard Cynthia's voice from the front over here. Jeff and Gail right here. You heard each person's individual voice, each person's unique take. You could hear their individuality. Unlike the miracle of Kol Ha'am Yachdav, the Israelites did not respond as a monolith when they said Na'aseh v'nishma. They did not cease to be individuals completely conforming to one voice. Na'aseh v'nishma was said without any help from God. It was all them. Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will understand. We are not one person, yet we act with one heart. This President's Day weekend, as I read these words, Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will understand, I'm reminded of another we, a we that we hold sacred, not just as Jews, but as Americans, we the people. And I imagine as at least 9 of those founding fathers stood around, and you can see the picture in your minds, right, of the signing of the Constitution, of the ratification, each of them coming from different backgrounds, each of them having different family stories, each of them certainly with a different voice of what they wanted for the future of this country. And yet, all of them saying yay at one time. This President's Day weekend, I invite you to reflect on who we want to be as Jews and as Americans. Are we interested in being Kol Ha'am Yachdav, though it's beautiful to be in one singular voice? Or are we interested in going on a journey and being able to arrive at Na'aseh v'nishma? We will act as one, but we acknowledge our individuality, our unique piece of divinity inside of us. Shabbat Shalom. At this time, we call to mind anyone in our hearts who is in need of healing of mind, body, or spirit. Perhaps it's someone who is constantly at the forefront of your minds. This person really needs some healing. Or perhaps they kind of float in the back of your mind, and just now their names cross your lips. Our community is praying for the healing of Zev Yaakov Brachaslava, Binyamin ben Reuven, Jeffrey Millman, Cheka Hana Batsora Fagel, Victor and Susan Shedlin, Ruth Vickers, Elizabeth Dankner, Gloria Byron, Shelley Nadler, Maurice Miller, Alan Isserlis, David Bookdahl, Chava Batsara, Eliyahu Chaim Ben Fradel, Emerson Lorenzoni, Jake Cohen, Zachary Snedeker, Lorenzo Ben Leah, Tzvi Hirsch Ben Yehuda, Barry Gitlin, Judy Balsam, Ilana Bat Shmuel, Deborah Kapnick, Sheila Freed, Jenny Kaufman, Ronald Keeves, David Wolf, Gadi Elon Ben Pesia, Judith Scher, and Barry Dworkin. If there are any names that you would like to add to this list, I'll invite you to do so now. We'll start over here. תודה רבה. The Misha Beirach can be found on page 371.
Misha Beirach Avoteinu Mekor HaBracha May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Refuah Shlema, may all of them find a speedy and full healing. I'll invite you to rise for the Aleinu, page 586.
משפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונה, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו, ושמו, ושמו אחד.
As we come now to Mourner's Kaddish, we remember those who are no longer with us. Our community has the tradition of rising in the order of recentness of death. If you are observing Shiv'ah, losing a loved one in the last 7 days, I'll invite you to rise. If you are observing Shloshim, losing a loved one in the last 30 days, I'll invite you to rise. For Shana, losing a loved one in the last year, I'll invite you to rise. If you're here to commemorate a yard site, the loss of someone around this time of year in years past, I'll invite you to rise. We see our mourners among us in this holy community, this Kehillah Kadoshah, and as if embracing them, we rise as one. In recent days, we remember Phyllis Thurm, mother of Kevin Thurm, Rosalind Black, mother of Jordan and Ronald Black, David Schulman, husband of Louise Schulman, and father of Karen Stolzenberg and Ellen Judson, Jillian Brooke Janko, niece of Ellen and Scott Bacon, Ellen Gossage, cousin of Cheryl Spivak Braun, Jean Rappaport, grandmother of grandmother of Marin Weinberg, and Roland Stam, grandfather of Naum Minchin. We also remember those who have passed around this time in years past. Samuel Alter, Matthew Atwood, Sylvan Beck, Darrell G. Berman, Harold Scott Bernard, Myron Birnbaum, Patricia Kaplan Bowen, Ruth Goldberg, Irene Boysnack, Marvin McCormick, Erwin Cohen, Abraham Dranitz, Anita Dubner, Charles Abraham Fish, Jerry Frankel, Martin Friedman, Estelle Fridkin, Ann Gadoff, Juliette Goldsmith, Milton Goldstein, Bernard Gerald Golub, Sandy Greenberg, Susan Greenfield, Peter Holler, Gloria Herman, Bet Krieger, Alfred Lazar, Irving Siegel, Rose Levine, Lori Lewis, Leon Thal, Toba Malamud, Emily Melman, Irvin Melamed, Ruth Milch, Hannah Miller, Harvey Nova, Beverly Miller Pastor, Janet Perloff, Benjamin Pike, Moselle Pollock, Shirley Reish, Edith Richmond, Libby Root, Louis Rosenberg, Janice Beth Rosenthal, Wilhelm Rosenzweig, Chester Ross, Ross Rottenberg, Rosabelle Rootstein, Nora Schick, Josette Josette Schnetzker, Leonard Schwartz, Arnold Serper, Oscar Schur, Irving Smith, Barbara Tabor, Wolf Temkin, Paul Weil, Charles L. Weinberg, Harry Weinstein, David Weiss, Ann Weitz, Schulier, Werner, Catherine Wright, Francis Lee Zilikovsky-Horn, and Renee Zuta. We continue with the words of the Kaddish, page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Ve'alma divra chirute ve'amlich malchute. B'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye d'chol Beit Yisrael. Ba'galau v'zman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudasha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemayam v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Osei shalom bimromav. Huya se shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru. Amen.
Ose shalom bimromav, huya se shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru. Amen.
Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for a blessing, and may the way that we move through our world be a blessing upon their memories. Friends, it's so wonderful to be here with you. I'll now invite you to stay standing as we move over to this microphone and we make our kiddush and our motzi. And as we do so, I'll invite you to reach out and touch the person next to you. We are always stronger when, like the challah, we are braided together.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila lemikrae kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim, ki vanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat.
Amen. L'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat shalom.